And welcome back. Good evening if you've just joined us. This is Africa News Network. My name is Cindy Mabi. The Public Protector has come under fire for pointing out the Reserve Bank's failure to put the interests of ordinary South Africans first. But none of Busisiwe Mkhwebane's attackers paid attention to the bank's failures. Former Reserve Bank Governor Tito Mboweni criticized Advocate Mkhwebane for pointing out that the Reserve Bank's flaws in not recouping the 1.1 billion rand loan to Bancorp. ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe and Treasurer General Dr. Mkize have also come to the Reserve Bank's defense, along with Kaz Kavodia of the Banking Association. But no one has paid attention to the bank's failure to challenge the lives or to change the lives of ordinary citizens. And this raises other questions about the protection of the Reserve Bank at all costs, when all indications are that it is serving the interests of a few select capitalists and stalling transformation.
Mkize and Mantashe make flawed arguments in the defense of the Reserve Bank. First, Tito Mboweni says the South African Reserve Bank did not recoup Absa bailout money as the stability of the banking and financial system was at stake. However, this is flawed because the logic that will render some institutions unaccountable. Further, Mboweni does not reveal why no effort was made to recoup the money once the stability concerned was realized. Also taking a look at Tito Mboweni's defense of the South African Reserve Bank, political considerations like transformation will compromise the Reserve Bank's independence. Now, this is problematic because the South African Reserve Bank cannot turn a blind eye to the economic realities and the need to transform collusive and oppressive aspects of the financial sector. Now, taking a look at Mkize's defense, once again, of the South African Reserve Bank, he says that effecting a constitutional change to South African Reserve Bank's mandate is beyond the Public Protector's ambit. However, Mkize overlooks the fact that can the South African Reserve Bank once again turn a blind eye to the economic realities, the need to also transform the collusive and oppressive aspects of the financial sector? Once again, we take a look at Mantashe's defense of the South African Reserve Bank. He goes on to say that South Africa will battle economically if it tampers with South African Reserve Bank, which gives the country its credibility. However, Mantashe ignores the fact that transforming the economy to benefit the majority outweighs protecting the narrow interests of one institution. Well, Mantashe further says the Reserve Bank should take Mkhwebane's report on review to ensure its mandate stays the same. However, Mantashe's defense is flawed. He overlooks that South Africa's Reserve Bank mandate has to change for the country to realize its economic transformation goals.
When the former Public Protector issued her recommendations, everyone, including Mr. Trevor Manuel, including Ms. Maria Ramos, everyone said, those recommendations are binding. When the current Public Protector comes out with recommendations that does not suit their purpose, suddenly the recommendations does not seem to be binding. Now it can be challenged in court. Now it must be taken up. Now we must listen to the mainstream media talking about the strange report by the current Public Protector. Have you ever heard that being said about the previous Public Protector? No. It should not just be an investigation about what happened with regards to government and the Reserve Bank. The particular individuals that were negligent on their job, the minister responsible at that time, the director general responsible at that time, the governor at that time should be investigated also. And if they were negligent and criminally negligent, they should also be kept responsible criminally.
You see, the problem with...
All right, and joining us live in studio, Botsang Moilwa, political analyst, the Sfiso Mahlango's resident political analyst, Mzwanele Manyi is the president of the Progressive Professionals Forum. And as always, the lines are open. You can join us on social media as well. Good evening, gentlemen. Sfiso, welcome back. The Public Protector, no surprises that she would be under attack and the Reserve Bank receiving all of this protection. Botsang, you also responded to former Governor Tito Mboweni's post on Facebook regarding the Absa loan. But I think what the debate is about is the failure of the Reserve Bank to materially change the lives of the majority black people here.
Good evening, Cindy.
Or whether that it was its mandate.
Panelists and AN7 viewers. Well, I'm impressed that you saw my response to Mr. Mboweni. It is not only the failure of the Reserve Bank. It is people and former leaders like Mr. Tito Mboweni who are failing to acknowledge and or accept that the Reserve Bank, as it is instituted at the moment in the country, it is not saving a development phase, it is not saving the government of the day, it is not saving the people of South Africa. We all know, and our people should not be lied to, that the South African Reserve Bank is not actually a central bank of the country the way a central bank is supposed to be instituted and defined. It is not serving the purpose of the central bank. It is serving the interest of the majority shareholders of the Reserve Bank, who are one, white, two, foreigners. We know that 63% of the Reserve Bank shares are held by a German family. Those shares have been scattered all over a German family. That's number two. That's why our notes are being printed in Germany. But we cannot come and try and be like Mr. Tito Mboweni and say the Reserve Bank has to be independent. What is independent about the Reserve Bank when it's actually the governor of the Reserve Bank appointment is mainly influenced by the board of directors of the Reserve Bank, by the shareholders of the Reserve Bank? It is not the central bank of the country. The Reserve Bank itself, under Tito Mboweni, has dismally failed to pick up the collusion and the corruption of banks in evaluating or devaluating the rent from 2007 until it was exposed last year. Where was the Reserve Bank when all that happened? When the bank, because Tito Mboweni says the Reserve Bank duty, one of the primary duties of the Reserve Bank is to make sure that banks conduct themselves in a manner that is appropriate for the benefit of the country and to protect the currency of the country. But they failed. So what is he talking about by attacking the public protector in things that Mkhwebane, as the public protector, did not invent? They happened before she was there. So it is not true that the Reserve Bank is an independent institution.
Yeah, but this is what we've been told historically, that the macroeconomic framework is lauded, it's second to none, that our financial institutions are above board and can be benchmarked against international standards. And the mandate of the Reserve Bank in itself, what Advocate Mkhwebane is recommending, is that there is a change to their, or a reform to their policy in what, their mandate is. Where we are at the moment, there's very little else. I think, with the ones that are defending the Reserve Bank, are they at fault, or are they just simply blinded by policy and not wanting to see beyond what the Reserve Bank can do?
A couple of things. Firstly, let's say, keeping the Reserve Bank as it is in terms of defending the currency, the first question then becomes, if indeed that is the mandate that everybody says it mustn't change, what then was the Reserve Bank's response when the currency was rigged by banks? Why didn't we see the Reserve Bank jealously guarding its one and only mandate, as it were? Because that bank rigging actually has cost the consumers on the ground. I think this is where the public protector is coming from, to say, at the back of its mind, the bank must have the interests of the people. I have not seen anything that Advocate Mkhwebane has said in her report to say even that part of the mandate must change. She's probably just adding to it to say it must have the interests of the people, and I cannot see anything wrong with that. And I would have thought also, purely from a governance point of view, people like Tito Mboweni, who were governors of the Reserve Bank, they should have been given, if not an opportunity, or should have made themselves available when this probe was happening, to say, this is my input into the probe. I honestly think it's unbecoming of somebody who was holding a position to come on an informal communication thing, to articulate things given a privileged position, as it were. So I think if any good advice must be given to Mr. Mboweni, is that if he's got anything to say, he must make a formal submission to the public protector, which he should have done in the first place. And I think to come at this point is not working.
Yeah, and amongst others, we heard Gwede Mantashe, the likes of Dr. Zweli Mkhize, also saying hands off the Reserve Bank, the independence must be preserved or protected. How does that fit into the situation that we're in, with the majority black on the periphery of the economy, the poorest, the least educated, and the most deprived?
In fact, just before Sifiso comes into this, I think anybody that says radical economic transformation and at the same time says there are certain holy cows, I think that person will not be believable. I think it is very important for leaders in society, ANC leaders, to be consistent in their messaging, to be very resolute in their messaging. We cannot have the president of the ANC saying radical economic transformation, and then we have other leaders of the ANC saying something different. By radical economic transformation, to change the structure of this economy, Reserve Bank is at the center of this. Reserve Bank controls how much money you have in your own pocket. Now, if Reserve Bank is going to take decisions or is going to have a role whose role is not going to include ensuring that the lives of the people change, then indeed, then Reserve Bank is not adding value to the radical economic transformation. So our advice for us as Progressive Professors Forum to the ANC is that the ANC must do its best to speak with one voice. The ANC, when its leader has spoken, must toe the line. We cannot have a situation where ANC leaders speak in different voices. They are dividing the ANC by saying one person says this, another person says this. So our advice as Progressive Professionals Forum, an organization which loves the ANC, we are giving the ANC an advice. And advice is speak with one voice. When your leader has spoken, don't try and do anything else as other various leaders to undermine what your president has said.
Yeah, but I mean, we also have the Constitution. We come from that edifice that says all these institutions are wonderful and there's nothing wrong with them. We need to have increasing, biki, that kind of transformation, a gradual transformation. And so if we were to target all these institutions, there's a paradigm shift that needs to happen. And for as long as the laws are in place, there's very little else that will change.
I spent the latter part of today looking at the U.S. constituency politics and trying to relate it to the South African demographic. Since Christopher Columbus discovered America, they've had over 60 amendments to their constitution. Over 60, which means as the population grows, trends and culture changes, amendments to the Constitution follow. So it's not regrettable that the public protector would say there needs to be an amendment of the Constitution, because in only 20 years, you need to see where the losses and where the assets have been. And you need to instill that to the demographics and change that. In fact, a radical economic transformation is not going to be radical if you keep the Constitution that we have today, because this Constitution was launched just in the early days of our democracy. I think what the statement that the public protector is making is a similar call to that which Mr. Malema made to say, I'm going to give you 6%, let's change now Section 25 of the Constitution. It was the ANC MPs, regrettably, that went against, that call for people in this country to get their land back. So she's not out of her waters by ascertaining that there needs to be an amendment on the Constitution.
In fact,
the fact that there's been 2/3 majority and the former president only wrote us poetry when he could have amended the Constitution to give the land back to black people, boggles me how it did not happen. So she's in her place, but she's going to be on the firing line, particularly because it depends on which ANC you're referring to. And if we speak of the ANC and we think the ANC is just one today, then the public protector, of course, will be attacked. Yeah. We have the ANC of Mr. Mosebenzi Zwane, then you have the ANC of Mr. Dari Kanekom. And those ANCs want two different things for the people of South Africa.
Yeah.
No.
Not to derail, though, I just want to come back to what the Reserve Bank can and ought to have done, because what we see more is Advocate Mkhwebane's credibility, her competence being attacked, that the report is irrational, it's unconstitutional.
In fact, we
don't know where on earth did she come up with these kind of remedial actions.
We should warn these people that following the Concord judgment, we are now wiser, that the public protector must not be undermined, the public protector must be respected. And if people have got issues with the public protector, there are processes to deal with the various differences, as it were. There is nothing in the constitution of this country that stops the public protector from making any kind of recommendation, be it affecting Parliament, just like Tuli had made recommendations as well that affected Parliament, to say Parliament should have done this, must do this. She directed an independent arm of the state that this is what it must do following the Concord ruling, as it were. So just as Advocate Mkhwebane has got a right to because her brief is to protect the citizens of this country. Now, if in her view, the Constitution is standing in the way of protecting the citizens, she has a duty to say this. And by the way, let South Africans know that the issue of amending the Constitution is not like something that is not done. In Parliament, you have a standing committee that is just ready to say, give me a job. You have a standing committee to review the Constitution. So if Advocate Mkhwebane has done her homework and she has come to a conclusion, that must be respected, and those are to differ with her. There's a process of differing with her, and that process does not include all these remarks that people make in the media, all this grandstanding that everybody do. So we want to say that they must hands off Advocate Mkhwebane, let her do her job unhindered.
Yeah, Mzwana, let's come back to the Reserve Bank, what they should or could do under the remedial proposal to reform their policy to go beyond currency protection and inflation targeting to serve the citizens of this country. Is this something that can be achieved in the short term?
Cindy, I would not say in a short term, but I do not understand why the attack on the public protector. The public protector, who is there to represent the interest of the majority of South Africans, is making a ruling and or a recommendation
to say all South Africans.
to say yes, all South Africans, to say if the Reserve Bank rules and regulations can be changed and or amended to be able to serve the public in this instance, it will serve the best interest of the public. Then there's fire all over for people questioning that. We are not a static nation. The constitution of the country is not static. We are a developing democracy. This constitution that is being hailed, and I will say it again, this constitution that is being glorified all over the world, which is having the most unequal society or nation in the world, it needs to be revisited. It needs to go. We need to go back to the constitution and say, does it serve the intended purpose of the government of the day? Does it serve the majority of the people of South Africa? How do we have a constitution that defends the Reserve Bank, that prints its notes of low quality in a foreign country when we can print them locally? How do we have a constitution that defends a policy of the South African Reserve Bank that is supposed to be a central bank that is owned, governed and controlled by foreigners? We cannot sit here and say the public protector should shut up when she has picked up an error in the process of the Reserve Bank. Yes, we need a central bank or a Reserve Bank of the country that is independent from political influence, that is independent from political parties. We do need that. But this current Reserve Bank that we have, it is not independent from all those because it's being influenced. The government of the Reserve Bank since 1994 has been employees of the ruling party. The board of directors of the Reserve Bank are the shareholders. There's no independency in that. And we cannot ignore what the public protector said. Now, people comfortably who loved, and let's leave Mkhwebane out of this, Cindy. People love the public protector who took the president of the country and the parliament to court, and the court ruled that her findings are binding. Now, a public protector comes for the best interest of the nation with a recommendation. The very same people, the very same bunch of people are standing up and are saying, we'll take this matter on review. She cannot make decisions or inputs in that regard. We have double standards in this country. When it suits some people, the public protector office is useless.
I mean, it takes us back to the SAIEX report, the fact that it has been under investigation for over 15 years, under a different regime, and it's only now that it's coming up, well, hopefully to its conclusion. We still don't know who's liable to pay. Advocate Mkhwebane says ABSA says it might be Bancorp shares, shareholders, etc. This is exactly the catalyst that brought out what the Reserve Bank and the financial sector has been doing in preventing or hampering transformation in the country. Is that what we say?
Let's address two things quickly. Let's address two things. Firstly, just to earlier question is what is it that the Reserve Bank can do, for instance, to help the people? It's a very simple thing. What the Reserve Bank can do, as an example, is to differentiate the interest rates. Reserve Bank can say, if you are requiring a loan from a bank for capital formation purposes, be it building a house, be it starting a factory or whatever, you pay, say, prime, for argument's sake. But if you are actually asking for interest rate to buy a car or whatever, any of these consumption items, then interest rate can be prime plus whatever kind of thing. It can give those kind of guidelines, and those guidelines can have far-reaching implications for the lives of people. Then people will be able to build their asset base in a manner that is protected by the financial systems. So there are quite a few other things that it can do to protect the lives, very responsible things, as it were. Number one. Number two, also the issues of when people rig currency like it has been rigged. Reserve Bank can then be given powers to deal with these banks that are rigging currency. What are the penalties that are automatic? What are penalties that are going to apply when that happens? And as to the question of whose liability, first point that we must make is that there was an illegal transaction and so on. I think there's consensus on that amount. The question of who is liable is just an expedient question. This is very simple. If you buy a property, if you buy any institution, if you buy a business, you buy both assets and liabilities. ABSA bought Bancorp, as it were. Bancorp is the actual institution that should have paid the money. So the liable institution is Bancorp. But if you come and buy Bancorp, and you buy both sides of the balance sheet, you buy both assets and liabilities, this is a liability of Bancorp, which ABSA is today responsible for. This is a very straightforward deal. I don't understand what is this confusion.
Yeah.
Straightforward.
What's the protection, though, of the Reserve Bank at all costs, it seems, if you just to simplify it?
Well, I think the reality of the Reserve Bank in this country is something you don't see in any other country. The Reserve Bank in South Africa has shareholders, so it's like a business. Certain families own it, and of course, if you're a shareholder, you'd want your interest to be protected. So this Reserve Bank we're talking about is not a central bank that represents South African citizens. And I think that's what the public protector was running in the periphery of, to say this Reserve Bank allowed money to be taken out of the country, allowed for there to be looting. So the former public protector, I don't know why she ignored the CIX report and why ABSA refused to pay in the first place, and why the Reserve Bank never took it up. So it's up to the public protector to then say why you, the Reserve Bank, allowed ABSA to loot and did not call them to account. And the reason that the Reserve Bank allowed ABSA to loot is because the Reserve Bank itself is a private entity just like ABSA. It has shareholders just like ABSA. It wants to make money just like ABSA. So had it been an organ of the state of this country, or had we had a black bank or a state bank, the narrative would be different. And the conversation tonight would be different. But we just have a Reserve Bank that is out there, that is running a business because its shareholders want profit. So you cannot be trying to deal with an ABSA matter when you yourself are trying to run a business.
Yeah,
so essentially it's a business.
Okay,
so we're dealing with the reputation issue. Even if the Reserve Bank people behind the scenes, they know that they've done wrong, and what they've done wrong is not to have recalled money which they should have recalled earlier. Now, because now they've built this, just like National Treasury, they've built this facade of a zero-defect institution. They cannot afford to have that dented. So this is what this is about. Now, if the Reserve Bank can be wrong, then it means that how many other things have they done wrong? So they can't afford to be wrong. So they're going to fight to the bitter end about this because it's a reputational issue for them, because they had given a particular perception in the market that they are angels, they walk on water, they can do no wrong, and now here it comes, and now their reputation can't take this.
Just in conclusion, Mzane, like you're actually saying they're doing wrong. The Reserve Bank did fuck on. They did nothing.
Mind your language.
Look,
as
fuck on is nothing in Afrikaans. The Reserve Bank of South Africa, look at the most recent case. Let's leave this ABSA story, the old one. Look at the bank cartels, the collusion of 17 banks, of which 4 of those 17 are South African major banks. Evidence is in front. Some of those banks have come up and they've said, we can comply, we can cooperate, we have colluded to devaluate or over-evaluate the currency of the country. What did the Reserve Bank do? Until today, the South African Reserve Bank hasn't come out. As the people, Tito Mboweni is quoting paragraph 6 there that says it's supposed to manage the banks and their conduct. The Reserve Bank until today They haven't said a
Has not
word
managed
regarding the conduct, the corruption of the major banks of this country. So what is their purpose? Manje is saying they've done well, they've done wrong. I'm saying they did nothing. They're just keeping there, guarding their shares. So is saying they operate like ABSA. Some of the shareholders, actually, you can go and check the records of the Reserve Bank shareholders, are people who are shareholders of banks like ABSA and Barclays International and so forth.
Yeah,
so
I think that's the sequel to this debate.
Actually, bank number 6 in this country.
All right, we're going to leave it there, gentlemen. Always an education being with you. Much appreciated. Batsang Moiloa, political analyst. Siso Mahlangu is resident political analyst. And Mzwanele Manye is the president of the Progressive Professionals Forum. And you at home, thanks indeed for joining us as always. We continue on social media. For now, though, we take a quick ad break. We'll see you shortly.